How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and today we're going to discuss the role of administration. Someone sent me a question and said, hey Gange, what does administration really do? And I know we have an animosity towards administration. I know that, unfortunately, we kind of have developed an us versus them mentality. So when I talk about the role of administration, I'm not going to be talking about individuals in those positions. I'm going to be talking about what's expected from those positions. Okay, because I don't want to encourage animosity. I'm trying to get us together on one page. So I'm not going to focus on the who, but rather the what of the position. So I think it's a great question. I'm going to give it a shot. I think I have a good idea of what's expected from the administrative level. And when we come back, let's to our sponsors, come back, and we'll talk about the role of administration. Guys, remember this channel's for you guys, the frontline experts who work the field of corrections. So please, guys, if you haven't already, subscribe, interact, engage to the channel. I need that engagement. I need the subscribes. I need it. I need to get to about 10,000 subscribers at least. And hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video up. All right, so stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Thanks for listening to my sponsors. So we're going to talk about the role of administration. Guys, I post this question on my board on Facebook page, and the responses were tough. A lot of the responses were aggressive, for lack of a better word. But again, I think a lot of it's warranted. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely some animosity there that has developed for the right reasons. But again, most of those reasons are usually directed towards the individual. I'm looking more to explain the position itself, because believe it or not, there are some good people in the positions and do what's supposed to be done. So when we're talking about the role of administration, I have a feeling that the front line may not always be aware of what's expected from that position, and also the powers that push on those positions. They may not always realize that in some cases the administration doesn't always have the last say. But what we would expect from administration is they should be speaking up if there is a concern. And I do think that you don't want a puppet. And I respect that. I know the front line mentions that as a concern. I agree with that. You should have somebody that's willing to speak up for their front line, for the concerns of their front line, because a lot of people that are making decisions from above really don't understand the total operations of a correctional facility or jail, prison, whatnot. So when you're talking about administration, you're talking about the facilitators of the daily activities of the prison, which ultimately leads to the end game of the agency, what they're expected, what they should produce, the result. So basically, when it comes to people on the administrative level, again, this is my opinion, they're facilitators between multiple departments. Okay, so they're not the departmental experts. They are the ones that deal with the departments when they got to kind of interact with each other. So the overall collective view of where the agency needs to be, and collectively how they get that mission done. So they're kind of the objective agency that oversees different departments to make sure that the decisions that are made are best for the agency and not just best for the department in need. I don't know if that makes any sense, because if we really didn't have administration, we wouldn't really have a good balance. And again, I'm talking about the position itself. I'm not talking about the people who use the position and just don't know how to do the job correctly. So, but just bear with me. If it's done correctly, administration kind of is the balance to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak up and be heard. Because remember, if everything was run just by department heads, we would never get anywhere, because department heads usually are going to do what's best for their department. So you need somebody who's a step above to look back and see the bigger picture. Yeah, I know your department wants it done this way, but this is how it's going to affect the other departments. So basically, we deal with the interaction of both departments or multiple departments for the collective mission of the agency, which ultimately, believe it or not, we also deal with the potential lawsuits that can come our way. So that also involves the overall mission of the facility. So we try to limit the lawsuits that come our way as well, making sure that we protect the facility, if need be, in case questions are asked, and we do what needs to be done to make sure we eliminate any potential for a lawsuit. So we try to exhaust every measure possible before it gets to that. And again, that's why we have the grievance system in play. The grievance system is meant to give us the concerns so we can go ahead and act accordingly. So there's a lot of pressure on the administrative level, because we're the ones immediate to the facility, at least from a higher up perspective. So we put a lot of pressure on the front line, but we have reasons why we're putting that pressure on the front line. Now, a lot of us have different backgrounds. Some may come from custody, some may come from social services, some may come from mental health, classification. I mean, whoever they decide to move up, they can come from almost any department. Some would choose that you have more people from custody representing in those higher positions. I would agree to that. I agree that it would create a great balance. It's a needed balance, especially where corrections is going right now. Everybody's talking about rehabilitation. So you got to have a balance with custody in there. And custody's got to tell them, hey, listen, guys, we can't do any of this unless this has been put in play. But because we all have our own backgrounds, we all sort of have a bias, and we have to eliminate that bias when we get into this objective position, which means that I'm no longer looking at things from a myopic perspective of, classification or custody or social services. I'm looking at things from the bigger picture, because I'm a facilitator now. So when I have a concern and I look to bring department heads to the table, they're the ones I'm diffusing that sense of responsibility to, because now they are the experts. So even though I may have a background in something to kind of even things out, I may influence a little bit when I'm asking questions. I may kind of, I have a little bit, better knowledge in a certain area. I may question more, but ultimately it's up to the department heads. If there's an argument going on between two departments and they can't settle it, which gets me upset. You guys should be able to settle it, you department heads. But if you guys can't settle it, and unfortunately I have to make a decision, I'm not the departmental expert. You guys are. So it's whoever sells me the best argument. But again, I'm going to exhaust as many questions as I can. I try to be adversarial. Basically, you have to prove to me, because I'm going to have doubt. You have to prove to me why this is going to work. And that's the key. And that was great advice that someone gave me, by the way. Because usually when you give an argument, you prepare for the cons. And if you prepare for the cons, you're good for any argument. But if you're sitting there only writing the pros, the cons, they're going to destroy you. So technically, you bring the department heads, you go to them, and they give you the argument of what they believe will work best. But that only should happen if those two departments or multiple departments just don't seem to get along. Because most of the time, the clashes that happen, they're personality conflicts. Because at the end of the day, if the answer is so simplistic and I see it as being simplistic, then I got to wonder why you didn't see it as department heads. Because I'm not an expert. You're my expert. Remember, as administration, we really shouldn't mess with the departmental structure. That should be set in play unless there's a need to in regards to how that department relates to other departments. But technically, in the overall running of that department, you have supervisors for that. That's their department. You know, you don't want to micromanage, you want to empower them. So that's their department. I'm not going to micromanage you. You're the expert. You know, I'm not messing around with your departmental structure. But if you have a concern that stretches past your department to another department, well, let's talk about it. Let's bring it to the table and we'll see what we can do. But we all have that same mission, so let's all get together and work to resolve, to make a resolution. So, as administrators, you are facilitators. And as I said, the reason why we're needed, and just to answer the question from the gentleman that sent it to me, is because if you didn't have people in administration, now again, I'm talking about people that are doing the position for the right reasons. I know there's animosity towards administration, but usually that animosity isn't towards the position, it's towards the individual who's in that position. So let's remove the individual from that position and let's talk about the position of administration. If you didn't have anybody in administration, you wouldn't have that objective entity who can solve the concerns. You would actually ultimately have a facility that's running in a very isolated manner. So good administration is going to make the attempt to bring all those pieces together and run in one fluid motion. Unfortunately, now with the issues of corrections, we're not seeing that. But that is the picture. So I know some people may argue about what I just said, but that's because it's not being seen. But I'm telling you, that's why it exists. We are the ones that are supposed to piece everything together to run in one fluid motion. Because if not, as I said, we're running isolated from each other. So having said that, I know a lot of people aren't seeing that. But again, I'm talking about what's the role of the position. So again, we're facilitators. We communicate, we bring the departments together as one, and we move forward. But we try not to be biased. But I will say one thing. Custody is the backbone. The reason why I'm going to say custody is the backbone is because custody represents safety and security. So somebody in an administrative position should have a good sense of safety and security because that's what you build everything on. So wherever you go, wherever you need to be, comes from that safe and secured foundation. So you need to have a little bit of sense for safety and security. But again, you also have departmental experts like your majors or your captains or whatever your high-level security personnel would be, who can help address you with any type of security-related concern. So if you're uncertain about it, you can go right to them and they can go ahead and give you the best advice. And then that's where you can kind of go off from. But again, you still have to listen to what they have to say and see how that fits into the bigger picture. But that's the weight. I would say in every decision you have to make, safety and security is 99% the weight of that decision. Because if safety and security is in play, everything else will flow. Everything else will flow. If safety and security isn't in play, you got nothing. You have absolutely nothing. So again, the role of administration, obviously, besides the fact that we protect lawsuits, kind of be that objective agency that has to deal with the complaints and really protect the facility from lawsuits, whether it's coming from inmates or staff. We're also the facilitators, and we deal with how the departments interact with each other. If done correctly, you have individuals who are in high-level positions that listen to the communication that's sent to them from the front line and try to really make the facility a more safe and secure place by listening to those concerns and having those concerns addressed. Sometimes we have to step away and realize we are not the departmental experts. We need to go to them, and then they need to tell us what works best within that interaction. So again, when we're talking about having multiple departments working together as one, we need to have everybody at the table, discuss how we can make something work, make it more fluid. Everybody puts their input in, we make the ultimate decision, and we run with it. But if we continue to run in isolation from each other, we're going to continue to have the animosity, because in isolation, we're not going to see the importance of administration. Because if we're running separate from each other, obviously you're not seeing what we're meant to do. And what we're meant to do is to bring everything together. So that makes sense why there'd be animosity, because you're not seeing our effort. And if that effort's not there, shame on you, administration. Shame on you. Your effort is not to divide. Your effort is to bring together. That is your goal. Your goal is for all of us to act as one. And if you're not doing that, then you're guilty. And unfortunately, you're going to watch your agency eventually fall apart, or your facility. So As always, guys, just a quick little conversation. I thought it was a good question. Took a shot, answered. Hopefully I don't lose any subscribers. I try to keep things neutral. But again, this is a channel to be informative. So now if there is a concern and, you have to bring it up, at least you know or kind of have a general idea of what administration's about. So maybe sometimes if we understand the other person's perspective, we can start lifting that animosity. Because if we keep on having animosity, we become divided and we become vulnerable. And at the end of the day, the only person who's going to win from that is the inmates. And we don't want that to happen. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Please interact, engage, subscribe, comment. Hit that bell, get the notification. The channel's for you guys, the Frontline Warriors. My name is Anthony Gangi, and stay tuned. I'll post up another video hopefully tomorrow. All right, guys.